noted, we will be talking about how to build an anti-burnout lifestyle. And with that, why everything's fine, right? I feel, not even feel like, so often and so commonly we walk through life like everything's fine. And I always love to start with this graphic because I think it is the most representative of how the past few years have felt for all. There's really not a small subset of people that I've met that have had this emotion and feeling of, what the heck is going on? We see it in the headlines, we feel it in our bodies. And so it's a matter of how do we get ahead of it? And the thing about burnout and why I put so much focus on it is it's not new. It is not due to the pandemic. And actually studies before the pandemic in 2018 showed that 77% of professionals were feeling burned out in 2018. And then we went and poured gasoline on it around the world, and we are where we are today. The thing about burnout is that it is not a fate that you are stuck with. It is a situation and a condition that is reversible. And so today we're going to talk about giving you some of those tools to really get an understanding and get a grasp of what it is and what you can do about it. So as I said, this is not at all what I expected to be doing at this stage in my career. I actually have close to 2 decades in brand management, marketing, and innovation. I started my career working in workspace design, moved into consumer goods, and then also spent some time in the tech industry. About 6 years ago, I was at an early stage startup and I got blindsided by burnout. And being from Detroit, it was the first time that I'd hit an experience where working harder was no longer working. And actually working harder was the opposite of what I needed to do. And it took for my therapist, and now 2 therapists, to put me on timeout, to understand the power and the importance of playing hooky as a proactive way to manage your well-being and your burnout relief. So now over the past 4 years, I have built a career as a speaker and a burnout relief specialist. And with my company, Hooky Wellness, yes, it is play hooky. Hopefully you will see that theme all night. I'm not playing with y'all on that. I'm very serious about the art of playing hooky. I help high achieving professionals understand what burnout is, isn't, and equip them with the tools and confidence to do something about it. So I'm excited to have that conversation with all of you today. And once again, drop questions, drop comments in the chat. If you agree, if you disagree, if you got a question, that is what we're here for. Are we good with that? If we're good with that, drop "let's go" in the chat. See, you're not going to get away with just logging on. Let's go. All right. So another question for everyone. I would love if someone could give me their thoughts on what do you think it means to live an anti-burnout lifestyle? Oh, I like this chat. You can come off mute. If someone feels comfortable with that, you can drop it in the chat. What does it mean to you? Or what do you think it would mean to live an anti-burnout lifestyle? So to your eyebrows just furled.
Maybe balancing it all.
Okay.
Gracefully.
Balancing it great. That I like that nuance on the end. Balancing it gracefully. Boundaries I see in the chat. Plural. Playful and fun. Loving it. Vacations. Kendall, I like where your head is at. All right, these are some great thoughts. Thank you all. So when it comes to living an anti-burnout lifestyle, there's a few things that come to mind as I craft that. One is having the awareness to recognize and proactively mitigate burnout symptoms and signs in your life. Another is being able to understand how to leverage the pillars of mental wellness as your levers and tools for relief. So often we get into this place and we get into the burnout cycle and then we're overwhelmed and have no idea what to do about it. And so it's no surprise that the number one viewed solution to burnout is find a new job. But burnout is not only tied to a job, and often it is much deeper. So that is why it's very important to understand how to use the pillars of mental wellness for symptom relief. And it's where that idea of self-care comes in. There is a reason for the woo-woo, as I like to say. Another big aspect of an anti-burnout lifestyle is feeling empowered to create, to enforce, and to evolve your boundaries. Livonia was on it. Boundaries are a huge piece of this. And then last but not least is the confidence and clarity of knowing when and how to play hooky for your health. So that playful and fun and the idea of vacations and staycations and doing nothing at all. That's really comes in. So it is a well-rounded, holistic lifestyle that allows you to rest and to perform. And so that's why I live by the mantra of work hard, self-care harder, because it took me so long to understand that was the other part of the equation. We are taught and conditioned to work hard and to grind and to be a part of hustle culture. The other side of that was always really talked about as play, but it's deeper than that. It is more intentional than that. So that's why I live by the mantra of work hard, self-care harder. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, how do we start doing this? Because it is not something that comes overnight. We're going to start easy today. We're just going to start with a sigh. So wherever you are, can you just take a second and literally sigh in your space? Let your muscles relax, take in that deep breath, and let it out. Something as simple as a sigh is a great way to start. So we're going to break it down. I told you as a marketer, always got an acronym, and we're going to get into that. So the first part of the sigh is building your situational awareness. And in this case, we're definitely talking about burnout. So always starting with the definition. Burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. The reason that I always start with the definition is because even though the world is now talking about burnout, there's a lot of misconceptions about what it is. There's a lot of discounting the impact that it can have. And there is a lot of interchanging it with stress. The big thing about burnout is that it is all encompassing, emotional, physical, and mental. It doesn't leave anything on the table. And it is caused by ongoing, prolonged stress. Burnout is not something that pops up overnight, though often it feels like it because we are conditioned to say, everything's fine, I'm good, that's not that bad, I'll deal with it when it gets bad enough. But as you can see by that graphic in the lower right-hand screen, that's the stress curve. And stress isn't even binary. It's not you're stressed or you're not stressed. It's where in the curve are you? And burnout is its own cycle at the end of that stress curve. So as we look at the way we are looking at how to manage in the world, we're not looking to get to a place where there's no stress at all. There's actually good stress in the world. This is what pushes you to perform. This is what pushes you to create. And in a community like this, I'm sure you are always pushing yourself to create and do something new or in an inventive way. That is what makes magic. That is what makes change and what makes innovation. The real trick is when we learn how to recognize when we're starting to hit that point of extended exhaustion or moving into anxiety, panic, and starting our burnout cycle and recognizing it so we can pull ourselves back. It's about having that awareness to see what's happening, say if something is awry, and pull ourselves back. That is just life. Life is lifing for a lot of people these days. So how do we manage within that environment? And one of the big things is understand what it really is and that it is not a binary thinking. It's not either or. It's where am I? How far along in this process am I? So that I can now understand how does that impact my bandwidth, impact my energy, and impact the steps and behaviors that I need to take. So when you think about burnout, it can be driven by a number of things. It is not just individual, though it's very often spoken to like it is purely on the individual. One of the big positive or silver linings of the past few years is that it's put a spotlight on burnout, and organizations and institutions have no choice but to start focusing on it and providing resources and benefits because it's costing them dollars. Actually, $190 million on an annual basis is the cost of burnout with health. And if you are an entrepreneur or a freelancer, it can cost you a lot as well, from a matter of the clarity, mental fog, and just the energy to do what you need to do to keep your business going. So in understanding what are those dynamics that can create or bring about burnout, just at a high level, it's important to know there are drivers, contributors, and accelerators. And these happen at individual level as well as a systemic level. So from a driver standpoint, some things to be aware of what can cause it. The number one thing everyone always thinks about is workload, and that is absolutely on the list. But there's also things like fairness, values, the community and connection, reward. Those are some of the other things that can drive burnout in the workplace specifically. And if, once again, you're an entrepreneur or freelancer like myself, Reward is one that often gets tricky because sometimes the math ain't mathin' when it comes to the pocketbook. And so thinking about what are the other ways that you can reward yourself in this entrepreneurship journey is a big thing that I've noticed will help with the mindset and understanding what's within your control and what you can start to shift. Contributors is things that like your lifestyle, your mindset, even your working environment and those you're working around, as well as cultural conditions. If you grew up in a culture similar to myself with religious parents, mental health was not something we talked about. I had to learn about mental health from a different world. If anyone is a fan and understands what I'm referring to, you got to relax, relate, and release. That is how I understood mental health because of a cultural condition. So those are things that can contribute to your burnout situation or burnout risk. And then the last section is accelerators. These are those life changes. I really call this the bucket of lifing. So those life changes that happen to everyone and so often get discounted because they do. For example, changes in your job, changes in your projects in your jobs, relationship statuses, having kids getting older, kids getting out of the house, illnesses, as well as moving. Some of those things that are huge and we just so quickly say, it's just part of life. We go through the actions, but all of these things impact your burnout, your bandwidth, and can increase or decrease your risk of burnout in your life. So having a understanding of what are the dynamics at play can start to help you wrap your head around it. If you're noticing you're feeling off, you can start to hone in on which area might be driving it. That allows you to focus in. So I'm really big on frameworks and using a scientific or design thinking method. Once you start to understand what's going on, then you can understand what to do about it. Because if nothing else, we do not have extra energy to burn. So we want to make sure if you are taking steps, putting in boundaries, they're in the right places that can help you find relief in the everyday. This is a graphic. I like to make things simple and not as overwhelming. So this is a graphic I created to show and illustrate the burnout cycle. As I said, it's not one and done. It's really a cycle. And over the past few years, everyone became a plant parent, including myself. I am not going to show you what is behind me because the snake looks good, but don't see the fiddle. But when you think about the burnout cycle, you can read the white papers. I read a lot, so you don't have to, but there are stages, phases, dimensions, depending upon which white paper you read, that's how they talk about it. I look at it as a cycle, looking at it from a plant, because plants are in your house and it's not as jarring. So in the early stages of having a plant, when you just go buy it from the nursery, it's bright, it's thriving. The leaves are green and shiny. It's completely moist. Oh, that plant looks great. As things go on, you might start to notice that the soil is dry. At that point, it's not that overwhelming. You just give it some water. You see it perk back up sometimes overnight. When you start to move through the stages of with a more complicated plant or one that you may not have had the energy and effort or dedication to, you might see it start to move into the wilting and shriveling stages. But at that point, is it a matter of water, too much water, not enough? Is it a matter of light? Is it a matter of humidity? Or is it a matter of other conditions in which it is being raised in? That's illustrative of the burnout cycle and how it can show up in our lives. You can be at a point where it's thriving over in one situation, but in another situation where the conditions are off or your accelerators are off or your drivers are off, you can be in a situation where it's shriveling. The thing about plants is once you understand what's going on, there are things you can do about it. You can give it more water. You can change the room it's in so that it can have brighter, more direct light. You can change the pot and replant it if it gets to a place where it's really at a point where it really needs to start over. That's the same way we can think about it. But so often I find when I'm talking to people and my clients, they find themselves at a point where it's more shriveling and replanted and they view it as a failure. It is not a personal failure. It's just a call to action to do some things different and to change your situation. So when it comes to this cycle and how it actually shows up in your physical being, these are a few of the very common symptoms and warning flags I want you to be aware of. So the early stages is where exhaustion comes in. If you read articles about burnout, everyone always talks about go take a nap, like it's only about being tired. But exhaustion really is the first warning flag. So if no amount of sleep actually helps you feel good, if you start neglecting some of your basic needs, if you're noticing unexpected, unexplained physical aches and pains, and the big one, if you start more but producing less, that is the slippery slope of burnout. Is it impacts your productivity. So if you find at a point where you're like, I know I'm burned out, that means you need to take a break, because you will double down on work and produce less, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So be aware that is the first major warning flag, is that you're working more and starting to produce less. I'm trying to keep people out of that cycle, because that one is no fun. The next stage is where withdrawal comes in. And so you'll start to see displacement of conflicts if you're having miscommunication with a lot of people. False cures is where that starts to pop up from a matter of using things that might be recreationally fun, but using them more as a crutch. So alcohol, cannabis, those things fall into there. And then denial of emerging problems is what I see in this middle stage. Often people around you see things before you do, and especially stage. So if there's loved ones, individuals that are vocalizing that you seem off, some things seem awry or not like yourself, that's another warning sign to take stock of your current situation. And then this last stage is the one we really want work to avoid. This is where detachment really comes in. Cynicism at an all-time high. What I find with a lot of my corporate clients is the view that no one else can do their job right. No one can do this without me. Everybody sucks. That really starts to pop there. So if you've even found yourself speaking like that, just take a step back and reflect on what might be driving that, because it's very hard to see it when you're in the situation. Cognitive impairment is another big one, and especially for a creative community, because your brain is your magic. Cognitive impairment is real and so often overlooked. This is where it's a point where I have had clients as well as myself say, I feel like I'm getting stupid. And it's because your brain truly is foggy and cannot cross the T's and dot the I's. So cognitive impairment is a very real symptom and condition, but all of these can be reversed. And then the last but not least is PTSD-like symptoms. PTSD in the workplace or in other parts of your life is something not to be overlooked. How that often manifests is in physical symptoms, or often people talk about the feeling of nausea or tightness in their body. With my personal experience years ago, every time my Outlook went off, my stomach dropped and I got nauseous. That's a sign something is awry, because Microsoft did nothing to me. But that was an illustration of other conditions. And it is a very common symptom in the later stages that's overlooked and often not discussed. So that was all about understanding and starting to build out your situational awareness. So we'll move into the next section, which is all about identifying your relief valves. Once you start to understand what's going on, now what can you do about it? This is where more of the fun comes in. I think it's fun. It should be fun. We should have a little bit more fun in our lives. As you can see me going through that. So this is a quick chart about the wellness continuum. So on the left is the medical paradigm, on the right is the wellness. Culture is very much in that left side. American culture, let me say it that way, is very much in the left. We'll fix it when it gets bad enough. That is often what is communicated when people are dealing with burnout. I'll get help when it's bad enough. I'll take a break after this, or I'm okay. I can still keep going. This is more in a corrective mindset. If it's broke, you fix it. But we really need to shift to more of this proactive mindset, which is all about being preventative and proactive, as well as being holistic and integrating it into your life. I even have qualms with wording, specifically with burnout in the workplace. We talk about workplace wellness, but it's really just wellness overall. And I call it working wellness, because how do I get my job done while also not burning out and taking care of myself? And so taking this integrated approach allows you to understand that it is part of producing, is part of being creative, is part of getting the job done, is taking care of yourself along the way. And especially if you are one that is in a space that is very service oriented, where you're giving of yourselves emotionally, mentally, and physically to others, it is extra imperative that you integrate that and you illustrate that the way of working does not have to be what it used to be. And actually, it can no longer be what it used to be. We are beyond a tipping point of dealing with burnout in this world. And so now we get to have fun and start to make our own rules before the pendulum swings back a little too far. So where's the fun? This is where the fun goes. So these are the pillars of mental wellness. Has anyone ever seen the pillars of mental wellness or understand this space? Yes, no? You can put it in the chat. I see one nod. No. All right. So going into the world of wellness can be overwhelming. Let's just say that. It's great that there's all these new resources and benefit and modalities and pathways, but it's all these new resources and modalities and pathways that you have to figure out and learn and understand what they are. And so I was very much like that. As I said, I did not grow up with the wellness, with woo-woo, with any of that. And I'm very type A, MBA, so it took a while to understand it. The good thing about the pillars of mental wellness is that they are data-backed and proven to help offset symptoms of stress, anxiety, burnout, depression, and can help prevent a myriad of physical ailments. So what is this? And this is a quick way to remember what are some of those tools you can put in your toolkit. So the 4 pillars: growth, rest, play, and community. So the growth pillar is all about being proactive energy, about personal development and brain health. So the pathways, modalities, or activities that fall in there: therapy, coaching, journaling, as well as diet and nutrition. So if you're in a place or in having a burnout experience where you are noticing a lack of focus or a lack of focus, as well as a lack of clarity, just personal clarity. I don't know where I want to go with this. I don't know if I'm doing the right things. Am I making the right decision? This is where the growth pillar really comes in. So that cognitive impairment, growth is huge. I am a huge proponent of everyone deserves a therapist. I don't say everyone needs one. Everyone deserves one. To have someone listen to you that actually knows what they're talking about. It's amazing and life-changing. But coaching also falls into this. And if you're not comfortable or ready to go down those paths, just start with journaling. If you find yourself mentally stuck or you're like, I don't know if I'm making the right decision, just starting with journaling is a way to start practicing the growth pillar. The next one is play. Always a lot of fun. This is truly about fun, mental stimulation, self-expression. So play includes creativity. It includes hobbies. This is also where physical fitness and activity, sports and rec fall in. So those things that get your body going. So play is a great pillar if you find yourself feeling disconnected from others, if you're lacking if you're not being able to be creative. So this is a big one for this group. So play, it can be as easy as going to play hopscotch. Go to Camp North End on a Saturday and play in the chalk with the kids because they have it. It's amazing. Those type of things help your brain actually talk in different ways. So truly, if you are having a creative block, playing and doing something the opposite of what you thought you should be doing is a way to get that brain firing. Also, play is an awesome pillar to help with connection. It has been proven to help strangers connect and to break down walls and barriers for strangers. So play is a fun one. Rest, as you can imagine, it's about rest, but it's rest, recovery, rejuvenation. So rest is one of my favorite pillars. It's also one of the hardest, I find, for high achievers and those used to doing the most, because it involves you sitting down at some point. And so the rest pillar is huge because it helps your brain and your body breathe. And I don't know if anyone knows the book, The Body Keeps the Score, but the body keeps the score. It stores your stress, and you got a lot of it because it's 2023. So the rest pillar can help you work out some of that figurative and literal stress. So this is a pillar that includes things like meditation and mindfulness. That's why these things are important. This includes yoga. This includes sensorial experiences. So sound baths, aromatherapy, light therapy, massages, acupuncture, float tanks. All of these things are in the Charlotte market. This is the rest pillar. Those are fun and unique tools that literally can help your brain and body breathe once again. And they do not have to be boring. So that is something I often hear is the rest pillar. I can't sit down. My brain won't stop. That's not for me. The fun thing about it is that there's 101 ways to all of these. Meditation is not one-noted. It does not mean you have to sit in silence on a pillow in a dark room. My brain was not working that way in the deepest state of burnout. So for me, I did active meditation. So for me, that was flying a kite. For some, it's gardening. For some, it's running. So the idea of meditation is really about having it so that you have to focus in on doing 1 to 2 activities, because you have to focus on your breathing or the activity right in front of you. So if you have challenges being present, starting in on active meditation, a more active type of rest modalities or pathways, that's a good way to ease yourself into it, because there's no ifs and buts about it. You need the rest pillar in your life. You need the rest pillar in your life. You need all of these, but the rest is how you create the space for the others. Another space is community. So community is about connection to other people, purposes, and the world around you. So this is where, of course, friends and family fall in, but volunteering is in this bucket. Nature and animals is in this bucket. Spirituality is also in this bucket. And as I said, just being in nature. So community is a pillar and toolkit that you can leverage if you're feeling disconnected, both from yourself or from others. And in this world of high isolation and people feeling disconnected, this is a big one that we need up as well. So it's great that CLT is creative. This community exists because it helps with that, and just connecting you to others that share a same cause. So once again, these are the 4 pillars of mental wellness. There's a toolkit underneath all of these. I only have an hour with you, but I wanted to give you enough to be dangerous to start to play with. Once again, growth. So things like therapy, coaching, journaling, nutrition, rest, take a break, mindfulness, meditation, massage, acupuncture, yoga, play a game, have some laughs, sports and activities as well, community, connecting with others. So volunteering, nature, animals, and just being with some friends. So now you have a real excuse to go for happy hour, because you have to get in your community pillar. It's not just about the bar. So the next letter is all about grace, gratitude, and having some gall. So grace is show yourself grace and show others gratitude. The space of grace and gratitude are proven ways that have actually shown to release stress, to help build connection, to help with self-confidence. So the act of showing yourself grace is really about practicing self-compassion. So it's about having some understanding, acceptance, and forgiveness of yourself. And what that looks like in real life is being realistic, flexible, and honest about your bandwidth, your energy, and your interest. I will say this again. It means being realistic, flexible, and honest about your bandwidth, energy, and interest. I can't tell you how many times I have had conversations with clients and they are continually doing something that they don't enjoy doing because they don't recognize they have a choice. And there are times where you won't have a choice, you may have a choice to get something done, but how you do it is on the table. And so often when we're in the cycle of burnout, anywhere, especially in the deeper stages, that cognitive fog limits our ability to think creatively about the everyday situations that bring us stress. So showing yourself grace means saying no to something every so often. And just because you say no to something doesn't mean you're a bad person, because your no might be a not now. You can always do it later. But if you don't have it, you don't have it. You need to keep some for yourself. And then on the other side, showing others gratitude. So the appreciation and recognition of value beyond money. So I don't know if anyone knows love languages, but those are really good examples of how to show gratitude. So whether it be verbally expressing it, doing a favor for someone, giving them opportunities and access or gifts, those are simple ways to show gratitude. It not only will help you feel better in recognizing and being present in the moment and the experiences that you are having, but it also makes someone else feel good. So we want to make sure that we're creating this cycle, because I firmly believe that self-care done in mass is an illustration of collective care. And then gall. All right. I blame Ferris Bueller for our issues with Hooky. And I'm on a mission to reclaim this word because he did it so wrong. Because we don't know how to chill. And i.e. my name is Chill Sargent. So in 2018, there were 768 million unused PTO days in America. Just here, not the world. We're just wasting it. And then we wonder why we end up so stressed and so burned out and so overwhelmed. It's because we're not taking advantage of the resources that are really right in front of us. And that's not purely an individual thing. Organizations are definitely need to be called to the mat of not really encouraging individuals and sometimes even taxing people who do. But there is the time for change. So leveraging that, because we're leaving money and opportunity and our relief on the table. Then on the other side, once we do take time, we're not unplugging. So how can we start to change this? And a large part of it is just having the gall to say, I'm not. So often we go into vacations or even a day off and say, well, I have to be available. I have to look at this. People need me. They're going to view me negatively. And if that last one is true, and if you're in a situation where others view you negatively, that might call to question if that's where you need to be, because we are really in a space and you deserve a space that really wants you to prioritize and take care of yourself, because otherwise you can't do what they need you to do and can't show up. So this is that whole space of filling your cup before you fill, or putting your mask on before you do everyone else. But I got a bone to pick with Ferris. I'm figuring out how to do that, but he messed this up. And the last section on here is help yourself out. There's a lot of things that are awry, but it's really important that we recognize and flex where we have the ability to practice our personal agency. So if nothing else, go sit down somewhere. I'm very big on that. Well, that includes being honest with yourself. If you recognize that you're off, if you're like, okay, something is awry and I'm off, but you continue to act as though it is not, that is not being honest. So with that, great example of the end of the year is coming, and this is a high stress season. It is actually the highest stress of the year. And so when we think about that, if we know it and we go into it already knowing that we're stressed, what are we going to do differently? One of the biggest things is saying no. What can we say no to or not now to? That's a thing to think about. We get so focused on our to-do list. What about your not to-do list? What are we not going to do for this period of time to create the bandwidth to do the things that you absolutely have to get done? A way of creating bandwidth or creating more space within your existing bandwidth is routines and rituals. Routines and rituals are absolutely the secret code of high performance athletes. Those things that they have to do over and over again, they just make a routine so that they don't have to think. And these high performance athletes are in the workplace as well as at home. So that's why Steve Jobs wore black turtlenecks. He didn't have to think about it. He didn't have to make that decision every day. So that allowed him to have space to make other decisions. What does that mean in real life? Anything can become a routine or ritual. How you grocery shop or how you make your grocery list, so that you're not running around once a week like, oh my God, what do I need? Maybe if you have a routine of how you do that, all your questions are answered, and the only thing you have to do is make the list, not figure out when you have to make the list, where you're going to make the list, is the list right? Your wellness activities, of course. Are there routines in regards to childcare and who takes care of the kid on what day versus every day having to have that conversation? Routines and rituals around even holidays and who's hosting and what is the ritual there? It's looking at those everyday moments and creating some small structure to it. All of those things reduces the decision-making every day and creates more space for you to breathe. And then last but not least, I am team #UseYourBenefits. So if any of you are in a corporate environment, please use those things. Only 30% of people actually know what benefits that they have, and organizations want you to use it. So if you have them and you have a team and organization that actually supports you in using it, do them a favor and use it. Take your PTO, use their free money. Go to use your EAP. If you have an EAP, those are free, often come with free therapy sessions, as well as they will help you find a therapist and sometimes other wellness practitioners. So when it comes to helping yourself, a big thing is go sit down somewhere and recognize that that is okay and you deserve it. And it is not a matter of having to earn a break, as you probably have seen on social media as well. So that was quick. So when you think about how to get started and how to start living an anti-burnout lifestyle, it's about having that situational awareness, identifying and using your relief valves. So finding that activity that fits your interest and lifestyle. Everything isn't for everybody. And hopefully what you got in this small session is there's a lot of options out there that can help you in different ways. You want to have that grace, gratitude, and gall. So a way that you can do that is share a win from the past week with someone, one of your friends or family. Start celebrating those everyday wins that you so quickly can overlook, but those are the things that keep you going. And you can also send a note of appreciation to one person. And then last but not least, is help yourself out. I'm big on it. So schedule your next Hooky Day, put it on your calendar. You can figure out what you do with it later. Put it on your calendar so that you're not overlooking, discounting, or delaying your relief. It's a fun thing to have. Like, I have a Hooky Day coming up in a few days, so I'm not available. And as you can see, there's a little QR code up there. If you take a picture of it, it will take you to a burnout quiz. So if you're like, all right, I know that I'm dealing with burnout, or I want to double check if I am, it'll take you to a quick quiz that gives you an understanding of where you might be in that cycle and some tailored recommendations on what you can start doing about it. So that is the side. That is how we start to live an anti-burnout lifestyle. And I'm very honored to be here. As I said, I'm Erayna Sargent. Here's my handles. You can connect with me on any of those. I am happy to help. Even if you just shoot me a DM with questions, I will share what I know, as well as you can learn more about the support resources that I have for individuals, organizations, and teams. So that was a quick wrap up, but I am here for any questions, conversations. If you're like, yeah, that sounds good, but no, what questions or thoughts does anyone have?
First of all, that was amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really very quite eloquent, and I took a lot of notes. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for the notes. I always love it. 1 hour is a lot to talk about, not a lot to talk about burnout, but I'm always like, I want you to be dangerous when you leave my sessions, to have some ideas of steps that you can take. But are there any questions? It can be a specific situation. It could be any resources and tools. But I am here. I love Q&A, honestly. All right, I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
There's somebody.
Livonia.
Hey, it's Lavana, but I think somebody was ahead of me. Someone else said they had a question first, so I'll let them go.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Lavana, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, y'all. Hello. Thank you. First off, thank you. This was great. And it's not so much of a question, but just a comment that thank you for listing exactly what to do or how to get it in actual places or situations or things that you can do. Because I think as artists and creatives, we get a lot of feedback of, just like you said, just chill. But what does that really look like? And thank you for giving in such detail just how you can, based on your personality or what works for you. I was missing that. So thank you.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that is helpful. And if you take the quiz, you'll get access to other resources and tools. And then if anyone on here, if you know someone deep in burnout that's like, I don't have the energy to figure it out. I also do individual coaching, and I do a framework where it's like, what's going on? Let's figure out what's going on and let's make a plan. Because I remember when I was first blindsided, as I said, I was like, what is this? No one told me about this. This was not in any of my classes. And so it became overwhelming to understand which path to go down and what I needed, because burnout looks the same, but very different. Like each individual episode for individual people, or even within yourself, your episodes can look different. So once you know what's in your toolkit, you can start to play around with it and figure out what works. So thank you for that. I'm glad to know that was helpful. I see a question. One of the most important tools. Oh, my therapist. Yes, I have a few, but I've moved a lot, have given since being with them. So one of the biggest truly is pushing me to play hooky. And yes, it made the path for me to move into this space, but how to play hooky. So I was dealing with a lot of life is the way that I would say that. So moving around the country multiple times for our different careers, aging, ailing parent, dealing with cancer, a job that was no longer a fit from the internal standpoint. And yet I continued to go. because that is what I was trained to do. You have to keep pushing on. You have to keep showing up. You have to do this. You have to do that. So step one, I had a friend that actually exposed me to the fact that I could use my FMLA or short-term disability for stress. Had no idea. It was a benefit I was paying for forever. So once I understood that, went down that path, and I took 5 weeks off. In the first week, I went to my therapist and she was like, how's it going? I told her the truth, that I put down my daytime laptop and picked up my Hooky laptop. And she was like, that's not what we're here for. And so my therapist forced me on timeout and made me learn how to slow down. And the concept of playing Hooky, that whole thing of doing something other than work, is what will help you work better. And so that was one of the biggest things that and tool my therapist has given me, which is really of a matter of clarity and pushing me to give myself permission. And so that accountability is often huge, because it's not as simple as someone just saying, go sit down, go take a nap. It is truly a deconditioning that is happening, because we're raised in hustle culture. And if you're not working, what are you doing? We've been forced to think differently over the past few years, but it's still something deeply ingrained. So that was one of the biggest tools. Another big one, it's just my therapist now, she's awesome, but she is real. It is about, it overlaps with some of the work I do. And so I'm big on how do we think differently? Because so often we just get so used to just doing things as they have. So how can we step up, take a step back, and recognize that there are other options? So even if things have to get done, they can potentially get done differently, or you can take a different approach. But we're so used to doing it, we don't have a chance to take a breath or to step back, that it's, oh, I'm just doing it because it's routine and it's habit. And so my current therapist actually helped me understand this space of unnecessary stress and pain, and how if you don't pause to view the situation, you might be adding unnecessary stress into your life. So opportunities for you to find relief, opportunities for you to do differently, opportunities for you to get over or avoid the hurdles that you, or the walls you constantly hit, is this unnecessary stress we often sign up for, because we don't step back to view the situation and recognize there's a different way of approaching it. So those are two things and stories of how they've come into my life. So hopefully, Kendall, that has answered your question as well. Awesome.
How have you approached journaling? Like, where do you start? How do you?
Yeah, that has been a journey. So I also am one of those lucky late adult diagnosed ADHDers. So I have approached journaling 50 million ways. What I have found, there's a couple different ways in, and I've found them helpful in different stages of life. One, if you're just starting off, I think prompted journals are great. I love the 5-minute journal. I thought they did a really good job, because they break it down not only from a daily, but like weekly. And then they are very directive on like how you can use it. So the 5-minute journal, I think that one's a really good one for like personal journaling. Another guided tool, I'll have to find it. I don't remember the name of it. There's a business journal that I'll share with you in email, and you can share it out. I'm like, of the 15 journals, it's of course not right here. But if you ever see this business journal that is coral and navy blue, they are amazing, because they break it down in 13 weeks. And so from a business standpoint, I thought that was the best framework that I've ever seen, because they look at it from the high level 13 weeks, and then they have you break it down by week and by day. And they also have you not only look at your goals, but other parts of your life. So I find that I needed separate ones for business and for personal, with a little tinge of personal still. So that was huge. And then the last one, there's this creativity book that I did, and she's about free flowing. So the program that talks about morning pages. So that's literally write 3 pages just off top, no prompts, no nothing, just force yourself to write 3 pages. That's another good way. So if you don't find yourself responsive to prompts, just force yourself to do 3 pages daily. That morning page exercise, as she calls it, that has been eye-opening, life-changing, and actually a tool that I've brought back into therapy. So those are 3 different ways in for journaling that I found helpful. I have to find that one. I'm literally going to turn around and open this cabinet. It's probably right behind me though.
Thank you. No, that's really helpful.
Awesome. And if anyone's looking for wellness things in the Charlotte area, I do have a couple favorites. I'm always talking about them. One, massages are my happy place. Spa Urbana has a really, they have a membership or subscription. So I find membership subscriptions are a great way to get in some wellness without feeling overwhelmed, basically in your pocketbook. So often when we talk about spas and things of that nature, we always talk about the Four Seasons or the hotels or the ones where you're paying $300 for 60 minutes. But there are approachable, clean, other service providers that can help you with that type of wellness. So I find Urbana Spa is one that I'd highly recommend in the Charlotte area. And then there is a float tank in Noda that is also pretty cool. So if you've never tried floating and you're looking for ways to rest, relax, and to really slow down your mind, floating is that is one that like forced me to center. It felt overwhelming at first because it is a tank, but you can leave it partially open so you won't feel too contained. But those are two wellness activities in Charlotte I highly recommend, unless there's some really good outdoor yoga in the summer. Camp North End, if you can tell, I'm a fan. And then on the top of the Gant on Sundays, they also do them. So if anyone was looking for new things to try in the area, those are three that I'd recommend.
Thank you. Are there other questions? I have one more, but I want to give somebody else a chance to ask. Well, feel free to put, if you have some questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Erayna, what is, if let's say you're thinking through a therapist versus a career coach, maybe clients have come to you, at what point do you help them differentiate or decide which avenue and how to go about finding somebody that's a good fit for you? What are you looking for? And what kind of advice do you give when people are on the search?
Yes, that's a great question. I actually have a whole program where I talk about building your burnout battle team because I am big on creating, I call them your team to help you keep or get your shit together ultimately. And so these very different, these different multidisciplinary experts can help you have a holistic view of what's going on in your life, because there's a lot. And so when it comes to a coach and a therapist, they are not the same thing. So that is a huge, huge thing, especially in this day and age. When it comes to coaching, there's career coaching, professional coaching, there's wellness coaching, there's life coaching, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we just make up the names constantly. So big things to be that are important for you with both, but especially with coaching, is their proof points. What have they done? How did they learn? What is their approach? Who are their clients? What type of people that they talk with? And what you need, like testimonials really to vouch. So I find word of mouth and recommendations are huge. There's a lot of influencers online that are in the coaching space. It is important that you follow them for a while, that you pay attention to what they're saying, that you do your discovery call and ask those questions. Because with all of these type of partners that you bring in to support you in the burnout relief journey or your career journey, they are partners to you. So you have to make sure that you understand what they stand for and how they can help you. So asking them, what do you help me with by the end of this engagement? What can I walk away with? That will help set expectations on both sides. That they will actually enjoy it and appreciate it as well, as long as they're reputable. So ask that question. When it comes to a therapist, those are credentialed, that's highly regulated. Coaching is not regulated. That's why you got to ask all the questions. When it comes to a therapist, the big thing is understanding who they support, because they do have specialties as well. So some therapists really specialize in women, some specialize in males, some specialize in the other genders, some specialize in other family dynamics. So understanding what is their area of expertise, and really just in layman terms, what do you think you need help with? Because it can be hard and overwhelming to navigate psychology today, which is the great marketplace. I was like, I don't know these filters. I just want a therapist. So a very common one especially in this space, is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapist. That's a pretty standard one, especially if you're thinking it's tied to burnout. There's another space of EMDR, which has to do with a special technique that often is used for trauma or latent trauma. Highly recommend that as well, especially in this day and age. And then when it comes to talking to your therapist, you should interview them. Just because you get connected with a therapist does not mean you have to go with them. Think of it as like you're getting your hair done. Like, you're not just going to go to anybody that does your hair. And if you don't like them, you're not going back. It's the same type of thing, and even more important with the therapist. So they should have, and most do have, a 20-minute intro. So you're doing interviews with them and they're interviewing you. There is a chance that the therapist will say they're not a right fit for you and your needs. It's not an offense. You actually want them to say that than to force a relationship that's not real. So understanding from a style, and just wrapping up, do you want someone that gives homework, or do you want someone that is more directive, or do you want a style that's just more, that just listens to you? I've seen that as a rub. Those are two very different styles. And it's very important that you recognize which one you're more comfortable with, because I've seen that as a biggest area of disconnect. When people start therapists, is they're like, she just listens, or they just listen and don't tell me what to do. So asking those questions, and then, is the cultural alignment big for you? So do you want them to come from a specific cultural background? There are nuances that they can understand. And there are some people who have learned and been trained in those areas. So those are some of the big ones that I've seen, the nuances in both. But take the quiz. You'll get access to the Relief Library, which has some other tips on that type of stuff. And you could shoot me DMs on Instagram. As I said, I'm Chill Sargent. If you have any questions, I'm here. We got to do something about burnout. And so I am here to help.
Thank you so much, Erayna. It's not just informative, but I think you've empowered all of us to tackle this season of, I feel a lot better than I did this morning. And we've all walked away with some really tangible tools. So really appreciate you. Thank you for speaking to our community. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. We're so grateful to have you join us week after week. Erayna will be in touch. We'll have these resources available for everybody here, and just watch this space for more to come. Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Thanks everyone. Good night.